My name is QUON Stembridge. I'm 18 years old and I'm running to be your next Assistant Secretary. Every time I go across this state, people always ask me, they say, wow, you're so young. How'd you get involved in politics at such a young age? And I tell everyone the same thing. My story is really simple. I got involved in politics in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic when the world was shut down. The government wanted to take full control of our lives, and so they shut down our churches. They shut down my school. I grew up an only child in a single-parent household and a Democrat household. So I was always taught that the Republican Party was the party of rich white men that cared nothing about people that looked like me. Well, during COVID, I had nothing better to do since I was an only child. I had nothing better to do than do my own research. I started looking at President Trump rallies. I started doing my own research on Ronald Reagan and what did it mean to be a conservative. I wanted to learn for myself. What did it mean to be a conservative? What did it mean to be a liberal? What did it mean to be a Republican? What does it mean to be a Democrat? And so during COVID, the first thing I realized was that the Republican Party wasn't the party of rich white men that only cared about themselves, but they cared about the values that people that looked like me cared about. I just didn't realize I was conservative. But I also realized during that time that I did not like having the government in full control of my life. And so I got involved. I started volunteering with the Trump campaign in 2020. I was so young, they didn't want me knocking on doors by myself, so I made phone calls in 2020. And then I tried to help us save our 2 Senate seats at the time, which you all may remember. It was a huge political year in 2020. And then in 2022, I became a field organizer for the Georgia Victory Team, where we knocked on doors, made phone calls, wrote postcards, and did everything we could to help get Republicans elected in 2022. And then in 2023, I started the Georgia's 10th Congressional District Teen Republicans because I wanted to empower other young conservatives to get involved, take a stand, and to have a seat at the table. And ever since then, I've went all across this state speaking about the importance of the Republican Party engaging with the next generation of voters. And now I am running to be your next Assistant Secretary because I believe it is time now more than ever that young people and Gen Z have a seat at the table in the Georgia Republican Party. For far too long, the Republican Party has said we want young people, and then when young people like myself come in, we ask for a seat at the table, we ask for positions, we just get pushed away. This is not a time to push people out of the party. This is time to bring people in and build on the coalitions that President Trump helped us build in 2024. We need to follow in the footsteps of Ronald Reagan. You know, a lot of times I go around and I hear the quote from Ronald Reagan where he said that freedom was never more than one generation away from extinction, and Ronald Reagan was right. But we need to follow in the footsteps of Ronald Reagan. When Ronald Reagan was president, he took the conservative message to high school campuses. He took it to college campuses. He met that generation right where they were. We need to do the same thing this time around. We need to show this generation that conservatism still works. You see, the #1 demographic that voted for President Trump in 2016 was the elderly demographic. They voted 2-to-1 Trump. Well, that demographic is dying off and being replaced with an entire generation of voters who are voting 2-to-1 Democrat. In 2024, we saw an exception to that because of just the failed governance of the Democrats, but we're not always going to be lucky with that. We need to start bringing our message to this generation because this generation isn't voting Democrat because they love the Democrats. They're voting for the Democrats because we're not showing them why we are better. We need to stop complaining about why the Democrats are so bad and show them why our party is so good. So I'm running to be your next Assistant Secretary, so we no longer have to just talk about it. We can do something about it. We can stop complaining every election cycle about this generation being lost to the left, and we can start beating the Democrats at their own game and winning over this next generation of voters. So I will be honored to have your support and your vote in Dalton on June 7th. Thank you.